Hello. Hey there, I just thought I would do a few more tips on the bread. We're getting a lot of people posting up their great pictures, but we've still got some people who are struggling just a little bit to get the perfect rise. So today I'm going to show you what I'm doing I'm going to piece together a few different videos and that to put it all together and show you how I get a good rise out of my bread. I've got some pictures, I've got some buns here that I'll show you in a second. But what we'll do is we'll get the starter going. One of the things that I'm seeing is that people are talking about the instant yeast and whether to actually do a starter or not. In a lot of baking, a starter is always used. This is just your tan daco or whatever yeast, brewer's yeast, dry yeast that you can buy from the supermarket. And in this particular bread today, I'm actually going to only use one sachet. These buns that you can actually see that I've done last week, and they've just been stored in the fridge, so they're fine. We're only done with one yeast sachet, and I'm just changing the recipe just slightly more and more each time I use it and testing out different ways of doing it. So first up, we've got our 1 cup of warm water that we have in our standard recipe for the buns or for the bread. And this is the yeast, so I'm just going to pop that into the warm water. Now that's Stormy talking in the background. If you think I've got a bird, no, it's a dog. Anyway, I'm going to put in a whole tablespoon of the inulin. You can use sugar, of course, but the inulin being a prebiotic works well with yeast. If you try and use any erythritol, xylitol, or sugar alcohols, it actually does not work with yeast in a starter. So what I do is I actually give that a quick little whisk with a spoon to actually mix it all in. Yes, Stormy? Just getting rid of it now. But yeah, okay, so you can see I've really whisked that together. Then what I do is I actually cover that with a bit of cling film. And because it's winter at the moment, I do everything to get it as warm as I possibly can. So I've got one of these silicone mats. I bought this from Peters of Kensington or Victoria's Basement, one of those a long time ago. It actually helps to keep it warm. And I cover that up, and then I even go as far as wrapping it in a microfiber tea towel and that as well too. I think it's microfiber, but these are really good tea towels as well. And then I'll pop that somewhere warm. Like I usually stick it over on my dining room table, and I'll leave it for about half an hour, and that will actually grow. So we'll come back and we'll have a look at it again. But that was only with 1 yeast sachet, which you know in the bread mix we use 2. I'm going to try and get a really great rise out of just 1 sachet today. So as I said, these ones here, these bread rolls, I got 12 out of the bread roll mix that is on the website. And 3 things that I actually did different is, yes, there's only 1 yeast sachet in them, but I actually normally only do 1 in the bread rolls anyway. I've increased the butter to 75 grams of butter in the mix, which gives it more of a brioche style texture. And I increased the inulin to the 1 tablespoon. And was there something else that I did differently in them? No, I don't think so. So I think it's just the inulin with the yeast starter, 1 sachet of yeast only, and the extra butter. So I'm just going to show you 2 things. So like you can actually see, like, I'll bring it up closer. So you can actually see like these are really like a real bread. So you can actually see like all that gluten, and yes, it does contain gluten, to tear it apart. We'll just use one of those. So even to open that up as a standard bun, you can see it is very bread-like. They taste great, and for anyone who might have, I think some of the flavors that people might not like in the other bread is maybe the extra yeast, because that actually adds more of a yeasty flavor. I love the golden flax meal. Big recommendations also when you're making the bread is to freshly mill your flax meal or flax seeds if you can, even if you buy the flax meal already done, and if you do have a Thermomix or a food processor, just give it a quick whiz to make it extra fine and that as well too. But you'll see even in mine, I doubt that that's probably going to pick it up in the camera, but there is still seeds and that in there anyway from the golden flax seeds. But anyway, we'll come back in about half an hour and we'll have a look at that yeast starter and see how much it's risen. So there was 1 cup of warm water, and that's another one. With your warm water, make it not too hot, because obviously the cold water isn't going to do yeast any favors because it needs a warm environment, and too hot can actually kill the yeast and that as well too. So that's at least something on the little tips there that may be tricking some people up. But definitely do a yeast starter. It gets your bread going very quickly, especially in the Southern Hemisphere's winter at the moment. And yeah, we'll come back and we'll have a look at that yeast starter, and then I'll give you some more tips on making your bread get the best rise it can, especially during winter. We're back again, and I'm going to get started on just putting the bread together, just with a few exceptions from our original video. So always follow the way that the ingredients are listed in the recipe, because there's a reason. As I've mentioned before, salt will kill your yeast, so you want to keep the salt away from when you're pouring in your yeast mixture. So first up, I put my eggs in, then I'm going to put, a good pinch of salt in there, and I put my butter. Now, as I said, I put the butter up to 75 grams into the bread loaf. It just gives it a really nice buttery texture, really nice flavour, and it's adding a little bit more fat. Now, before I put in my yeast, and I'll show you the yeast mixture, I'm going to put in all my dry ingredients. So I've got 1 1/4 cups of the gluten flour, which you can buy from many places. I've got 1/2 cup of the oat flour, oat flour, oat fibre, sorry. Duh. It is not oat flour, it is oat fibre, but you can substitute if you're low carb and you don't mind a few extra carbs. I have used the gentle fibre in the bread machine recipe in that as well too. It adds roughly around 1 gram of carbs per slice, but still you're around that 2 grams of carbs per slice. And then I've got 2/3 of a cup of golden flax meal in here. So I'm just going to put that in there, so that covers up all that salt and that as well. And I'll just move that salt out of the way. Now, one of the things that I've also changed that I didn't say in those buns is I've taken the xanthan gum out of the recipe. Xanthan gum normally gives stability in that to gluten-free baking. This one actually has gluten in it. It doesn't really need that xanthan gum. And I found, as you saw in my earlier video of the bit of the video that showed the bread rolls, you could actually see like it was very bread-like and did not need to have that xanthan gum in there. So as you can see, this is our yeast starter. Now that had 1 cup of water, and it is nearly up to the 1 3/4 cups full with the foamy top. So it's actually like started really well, and it's nice and thick and foamy. If it does not activate like this, then start again. It's not worth putting it in there. It's not going to rise later. I'm just going to grab a spoon, and I'm going to pour that in to my mix, and then I'm going to mix that. In the Thermomix, it can knead for 5 minutes. You can be using your bread machines, or doing this by hand, or doing it in, I've got a mixer over here with a dough hook, and get that underway. But yeah, after 5 minutes, we will come back. Oh, I don't even know how to use this thing anymore. Get out of that, go back here, 5 minutes. I'm going to do a little review on the Thermomix, especially for everyone that's keto and that as well too, because there's so many good reasons to have one of these things, especially when you can make all your own flours and save a hell of a lot of money. Anyway, I'm going to put that on dough setting, and I'm going to put that on for 5 minutes. Let's try again. Learning the new machine. Dough, and put that on, and we'll come back in 5, and I'm going to show you what that looks like coming out and going into the loaf tin. Okay, see you soon. Alrighty, you can hear it's finished. I'm just going to take this out, and I'm going to show you what it's like when it's ready and that as well too, and show you that you don't need any coconut flour and that on the mat. I'm probably going to come and adjust this video, so I might come back in a second because I can see the camera's not going to show this mat, and I want you to actually see what I'm doing. Okay, just hang on. Alrighty, sorry about that. I just wanted you to be able to see this mat and see like how this mixture is. So as you can see, when it comes out, it does not stick to your hands. It's really buttery. It's very, very bread-like, dough-like. Just get the rest of this out of this Thermomix. You can see, like for all the Thermomix users, it should pull away very easily away from your blades. Just get the last little bit off. Okay, now essentially when it's all been kneaded, so if I put this through my KitchenAid mixer or the Thermomix, for 5 minutes, it comes out like this. Very quickly, I can just squeeze that together, and you'll actually see it all just come together as a dough. I push it out. I've got my tin here. So we use the 23 by 11 roughly. And I'm just going to like push it out to about as wide as that. And then into a rectangle. And Stormy's talking again. Stormy, can you shut up? And once I've pushed it out into a rectangle, I'm just going to roll it over very simply, like a Swiss roll. Even it up just as much as I can. And I'm going to pop it into my tin. I'm just going to push down those bits, make it, like I said, make it a little bit even. And then again, I'm going to cover that in I do double wrap because it's winter and it is cold, but normally I'll just do this with a silicone. So I'm just going to cover that up with the cling film, roll it into the silicone mat. Again, place this somewhere warm. Now, if your house is particularly cold and you've got air conditioning on, do it when you've got your air conditioning on anyway, but just try and find somewhere warm, or wrap it again in the microfiber towel to make it nice and cozy, and allow that to rise for the next hour. It should really come up. So you can still see there's plenty of room with this silicone mat for it to come up. And we'll have a look at it when it's risen. So remembering again that this one actually only has the 1 sachet of yeast, so we might not get a rise like the other ones, but we're going to get a really good size loaf, much bigger than an Aldi size loaf, for instance. Now, one tip that I actually did forget to say when I was putting all the ingredients in, and I'm going to put this in my notes, is I use room temperature eggs. Now, if you look up a lot of things about tips for getting a really good rise out of even like a full wheat bread with strong wheat flour, it's always using the room temperature eggs, because the eggs can again bring the temperature down of the loaf if you've got it in the refrigerator, and bring your yeast temperature down, so it's actually going to slow the rise. So get them out. If you store them in the fridge, pop them in a glass of warm water while your yeast is rising, and then by the time the yeast is risen and you can put your eggs into the bottom of your mixer or your Thermomix, then they'll be warm enough to use. But anyway, we'll come back and we'll have a look at this later. Okay, so an hour has passed. I've had this in a warm spot. Just taking it open now so you can actually have a look and see how much it's risen. So as you can see, even with just 1 sachet of yeast in the right size tin, I've got a really good rise on it. And like the bread feels really and smells really beautiful. You can choose to score or not score. I'm just going to give it a quick score. Let's get that one a little bit on there. And then that's going to go in the oven for up 45 minutes to an hour. I cook it in a fan forced oven. But as you can see, even on a cold winter's day, it's not really that cold. I mean, it's cold inside my house. It's a sunny day outside, but it's still, August. And we're going to come back and we'll have a look and see how it finishes. But as I think you can already see, through using the tips that I've done today, and I will add that in the notes in both the bread and the rolls recipes, that you can do it this way so that you can actually enjoy it with like less yeast, no xanthan gum for those of you who don't like it, and make a good loaf. Anyway, I'll catch you soon. I just thought I'd quickly show, like, this has only been on for 5 minutes at 170 fan force, and you can already see, like, I'm in the middle shelf. I'm gonna have to lower my shelf, so the bread is going great guns today. So yeah, I'll move that down, and we're gonna... Okay, so the oven has just gone off. I'm just going to grab the bread out now, and we're gonna have a look. I've already seen it, and it's huge. So there's no doubt that you do not need 2 packets of yeast in your bread mix. As you can see, it definitely rose even more in the oven, and it is a big, nicely crusted bread. I'll just try and lever it out of this loaf tin. That should be pretty easy. It usually is. Usually just pops straight out, but today he wants to work in a little bugger. That's what you want to do when you're on camera. But anyway, should be right. Now for anyone wondering, you can do this loaf easily without being in this crispy pan tin. And obviously even seeing by the rise of this loaf, it works perfectly well in one of the big Mackey's tins and that as well too. So there you go. So eggs at room temperature, no xanthan gum, only 1 packet of yeast, using inulin, perfect low carb loaf. As you can see, it's huge. So yeah, if you want to use a larger loaf tin, go for your life. You'll end up with more of a flatter loaf, but it'll still should rise quite a bit. But anyway, there's my new tips so far. Of course, there's always something I'm going to be working on to improve the bread. Oh, and of course we had the extra butter in this one, so it's 75 grams of butter in that. You could glaze it with butter, or you can put seeds and stuff like that on the bread or in the loaf and that as well too, for some alternate variations. But there we go. Anyway, thanks again for watching. I hope this helps everybody get better rises out of their loaves, but the main thing is just like keep it warm, keep the yeast away from the salt, wrap it up again when it's in the bread tin, keep it in a warm place. Silicon mats are worth every penny, and as I said, you can get them from Peters of Kensington, Victoria's Basement, and of course Thermomix, or the mix shop, and that sell Thermomix ones and that as well too. But anyway, thanks again, and yeah, happy baking.